What's going on, LinkedIn and YouTube
Hello,
as
hello.
well? Episode 16, and today we go talk about the art
Kevin.
of
I'll be back.
no. So
No.
we got no, Tim. So we're live. So it's excited to talk about this topic because I think every one of us deal with no on a daily basis, and I would love to hear, our core group, how we handle no's, and also from our audience. So if you're hopping on right now, feel free to start creating your questions, and feel free to stump us. So we're ready. Yeah. So my first question, guys, is what do you think of when you hear the word no? What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
It always doesn't feel good to hear no, because I guess it begins with a question, right? You're gonna ask somebody something, it's a request or opinion or something, and then you get that no. I think it depends on the context of the question, but I think most times when we hear no, we get kind of offended, and we usually want to hear an explanation why no, right? I mean, the way I look at it on this topic really is, I feel that most times when we hear a yes, we don't really ask or expect an explanation. But when we hear no, we kind of want to expect, okay, why no? That kind of thing. But I don't know why that is so, but we sort of the yes and the no are not on par. When it's a no, you want an explanation, but yes, you don't need an explanation. So I think that's kind of an imbalance. So yeah, that's my take.
What about you, Tim?
So when I hear no, I mean, in sales, it's very similar to what Jeremy said. It's more of a why. Because in sales, when you hear a no, you have to overcome it in some way, or at least get to the bottom of why it's a no. And if there's no way to overcome the objection, then to move past it and, either go to your next client or see if there's a referral opportunity. So, in my profession, no turns into another question, which is why? Why no? What was the purpose for the no? And generally speaking, because of sales, that's kind of how I think about life too now. When I hear the word no, I think why. So that's kind of where my head goes when I hear the word no.
What about you, Aldric?
I think it's very easy to just get into the sales mode, the sales rejection or the objections mode when people just say no, which is very common. The other way is, of course, okay, so commercially we think about sales rejection, and then I think in terms of social interaction, it's just a matter of, should I say, usage of time, right? I think we are all working professionals, so there's always this tug of war in terms of the time that we can put into the things that we do. So if someone at home asks you for help on housework, is that a yes or no? You get my point, right? You get my point, right? Because if like for I think for Tim and myself, when we are too commercially oriented, and when we start computing the numbers per hour, right? And then if we make our decision yes or no based on the amount that we can make per hour, then it's like, it's all right. I need to do something else. But there's always a social impact on that, right? Like, what do you mean no? This is our house. You have to do something about it, right? And then you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I think between a yes or no, sometimes we don't really get to choose. I think commercially it's always easy to establish like no and why no and then turn it to a yes. But when it comes to like home, social interactions, there's a lot more emotions that go to that, and it will be very difficult to actually get to. Okay, so I guess the point is this: it's either an emotional closure or it's a logical commercial closure. That's what I think.
That's good. Yeah.
Kevin?
So for me, I guess we all experience being taught no when we're a child, like not to touch fire.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
you hear no a lot, right? So I think you naturally just have this negative connotation tied to the word no, right? So if it's no, then it's something negative. So when someone says no to a sale, it's most likely negative, right? So when your boss says no, but it's because the way our mindset is trained, right? As a child. But then I'm the same way. I've been in sales, so I'm the same as Tim. Then you start changing your mind as you grow up and you start working in sales jobs because they reverse engineer the way you think. So when someone says no, you start asking, okay, why are they saying no and what's the solution? And then now, you know, as an adult, it becomes a challenge, right? Oh, someone's saying no to me. Oh, I'm going to show you how I'm going to convert the sale, you know? And then you start, you know, using all these tactics. And then I catch myself. I start doing it with my wife, you know? And I was like, hey.
How's that working out?
You want to do this cleaning?
And then talk about this on air.
So I was like, how can I get myself out of it? Or, you know, or how can I convince her to do it for me? And then I would use my Jedi skills from sales training. And then after a while, I think she figured it out. After 10 years of marriage, she's like, dude, you just go do it.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? It depends on the way you ask a question, right? Because like I've attended like a sales training, and I think the trick to that is don't ask a question whereby you leave yourself, you give the customer the opportunity to say no. Okay. And the trick to that is you will give options, right? You give option A. Okay, this is the Mr. Customer, this is option A. It's the more expensive option, but you get this. If you think this is too expensive, we have an option B, which is slightly cheaper. So which one will it be? Right? A or B. So when you pose the question that way, you don't get that no, because both answers will be a yes, just a more expensive one or a cheaper one. So that's one technique, right? And if we're gonna bring this on a personal level, you know, sometimes my wife asks me things, or my daughter, and I say, if you ask me this question, you need to be prepared. If you give me a chance to say no, you need to be prepared for the no, right? If not, don't ask me a yes no question. If you leave me the choice, and if I pick no, you have to be able to accept a no, because you gave me the choice, yes or no. So the way you ask the question is also quite important. And just sidetrack a little bit, you know, Kevin, on your point as a child, right? I find this weird, which brings me back to my first point, right? I don't know why there's the yes response and the no response is never on par. Maybe because when you're a child. My point is, you know, like you mentioned, don't touch the fire. Don't put your finger in the socket. Don't do this, don't do that, right? It's always no, no, no. But as a child, I mean, as a parent, I've never said that. I never said that, oh yes, please walk faster. Oh yes, please finish your food. Oh yes, please eat the vegetable. We don't do that. I do not know why that is so, right? If you're gonna bring the yes and the no on par, we should say more yes to our kids, right? To encourage that. But it's always the negative reinforcement, but very little of positive reinforcement. I don't know. I think it's a human psyche thing, right?
Yep. And I think it kind of leads to kind of what I like to discuss first, right? We'll kind of change it up a little bit. But let's talk about yes and no in the workplace. Since we have the East and the West, and we have a lot of professionals that are hopping on our show, right? And we're on LinkedIn. So a lot of people work for a boss. So how do you handle no to your superior? And we've all been in the corporate environment. We've all worked for someone. So I just want to hear your take on this, because when I used to work for corporate America, I would love to hear this topic talk about a little more, because a lot of people don't post about this. There's a lot of how to hack your LinkedIn growth, but there's not much how do you say no to your superior.
That's a good point. Very good point. That's true.
So
Tim, you want to go first?
Yeah, right. I'm actually good with this one. So yeah, I mean,
He said no a lot to his superior.
I did.
No, I don't think he bothers to actually utter that word. He just do this.
No, what I would do, I definitely challenge it, similar to similar to sales, right? And your boss says no to you. Why? What is the purpose behind you denying this request? I think it's a pretty good request. Now, if they have good sound logic, okay, fine, all right, that's good, that's smart. Then you've given me a reason why we shouldn't go forward with this. But on the other hand, if you bring a good idea to a boss and they just squash it and they don't really have a good answer, well, then that kind of leads to some questioning of their leadership. So, I think it's probably actually a good thing to challenge your boss. And at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. You have to realize that, right? Because, if your boss is the type that is take it or leave it, it's my way or the highway, well, that might cause you some angst in your relationship with your boss. But at the same time, the good bosses typically do listen, take suggestions, and try to find ways to implement it if it's going to help improve the company. Now, if you have a crappy idea, you have to also, like you were just saying, Jeremy, you have to be accepting of the no. If you just have a terrible idea, okay, well, your idea was shitty, so you have to be able to accept the no, like it was a dumb idea. But again, I think when I hear no from my boss, I challenge it because I want to know, okay, is there a good foundation to the no, or you just saying no because you're in charge? So that's the way I handle no at the workplace. Maybe not the best for the workplace. I know a lot of people should kind of say, hey, he's the boss or she's the boss, and I should just roll with it. But I was just never that way. And a lot of times it actually led to good progress. So take that for what it's worth.
That's good.
I have one question for you. Do you, when your boss or your superior slaps a no on what you're saying, do you by default ask why, or there are actually times where you just, all right, that's fine?
I kind of by default, I mean, I always like to know. I think that's, maybe it's an American millennial thing, right? But we always kind of like to know the logic behind whatever you're thinking. And it just kind of, I don't know if it helps us sleep at night or if it helps us just get past the issue. But, I think it's, like I said, it's kind of an American millennial thing. It's very common around here that we challenge stuff, So, I just kind of have a natural impulse to challenge it. Just again, I want to know for my sake, hey, did I come up with a crappy idea? Or, is there a foundation to what you're saying? Or, are you just, like I said, you just are saying no because you can in this moment? Because that never sat well with me. It never sat well when I had that person who would just say no because I'm in charge and you just have to roll with it. That doesn't, listen, as a person of some little bit of intelligence, that didn't make me feel good about working with them.
You wanna go next, Jeremy?
What about you, Jeremy?
Sure. So I'm the corporate guy, right? Still in corporate. I think in the East.
You better be careful. No.
I'll take this in two dimensions, right? When I get no, or and how usually in my experience the boss handles saying no. Okay, I think in these two scenarios, there is probably, I don't know, Aldric, if you agree, but I don't think the word no gets tossed around much in Asia. I could be wrong, but in my own experience, that word is kind of avoided because you will rather say something like, I don't think so. I do not feel that is, instead of the flat no, because no sounds very in your face, bam. I will only say no if it's really somebody I hate and just say no, and then just leave it as that, or no, and then something very agitated and make my argument. So no will only be against somebody I really don't like, at least that's for me. If not, usually, be it EQ or whatever, you just say things more like, actually, I don't think so, because blah, 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 or maybe we can look at it this way, so you don't actually say no, and by not saying no, okay, you find some other ways to express that. And I think as default, you will try and explain it. So that's how usually that's how we get handled in terms of no. And I usually don't say no lah. So simply put, I'll find some other ways to replace and not say no. On the other end, if I ask a question, I will try to be, like I said earlier, be tactful lah. Try not to offer the no option. Give plan A, plan B, pick one, boss. And I feel that, I feel that at least the few bosses that I worked for is quite interesting. They won't say no. They won't say no. They will not say anything. So it's more like it's like if you're one-on-one, right? They'll just
Okay, I get it.
and the silence there, they're not saying no, but it's a no. And then you just be like awkward silence and like, so boss, how, yes or no? Still silence.
That's what I do with my kids.
So you know what I mean. So I thought that's quite an intelligent way, because it's not defensive. You don't. So a no reaction is a no, right? So now I learn from that, and sometimes at home, my wife asks something, I just keep quiet, and nothing confrontational, but it's a no without saying no. So I've learned that trick, so to speak. And I think one more trick is if sometimes you get a no, correct? I mean, be it for customers or from your boss. Let's say you do your performance evaluation, right? And you ask, so boss, can I get a pay raise? And if the boss says no because blah blah blah, right? I think the good follow-up question to ask really will be, so how can I make you say yes, right? If you handle a customer, right? So okay, I hear you. So how can I make you say yes? Is it if the customer says, oh, it's too expensive? So you retort back and say, oh, how can I make you say yes? Will a 5% discount do? A 10%? I think that's another trick the follow-up to a no. Or at least that's one way.
You don't go to your boss for a pay raise and give him different options on the paper.
You know what?
A, B, C, and D. Different salaries.
Okay.
Don't say
Are you
anything
going
and
to
just
be
go.
giving me a 3% or a 5% raise?
No, it's a 10% raise, 5% raise, or I look for another job elsewhere that give me 20% raise. Option A, B, C. Well, to answer that question, I actually never had that conversation. I don't know. I think it's in the Asian culture that you just do your best and hope that your boss does return the favor, knows what to do to take care of you in terms of pay raise. And if over time you feel that, no, that's not what I deserve, you don't usually approach the question, you just jump and get to the new job, right? So yeah, concerning pay raise, right? So yeah, that's how I think usually works in Asia. Aldric, how are you?
I find this remarkably fascinating because
What?
I don't really think as usual. I don't really think about it as a millennial thing or an East or West thing, because to me, the core behavior that we all have, it will be very common. Like I will think about it this way: would the yes or no be instrumental in getting what I want? If it is, I will want to control the process leading to a yes or no. Then I have a higher chance of getting to a yes. So I won't focus on a yes or no. Like for instance, if it doesn't have to be a promotion or pay raise, right? If you walk into your boss's room, right, and you go straight and ask, boss, I got something to ask you. It's just a simple decision on your end. And if you just put it straight up front as yes or no, then it's very likely you're not going to get a response, because people want time to think. And while people enjoy being in the position to make a decision, they don't necessarily enjoy absorbing the consequences when things go sour, isn't it? That's reality, right? I like to make decisions, but when things backfire, I hate it when people just point it at me and say that, oh, it's Aldric's call. It's nothing to do with me. He's the one who suggested it. He gave the green light, right? So I think it's that part that people don't appreciate. But let's say you are the kind of person where if your boss tells you to do it, you do it, and things don't go well, and you say it's fine. It's just a way of trial and error and things like that. And if you don't point it to the decision maker, I think things will be a lot better in that sense. And you take the social pressure off. You take the pressure of making a bad decision of everyone working with you and around you. It makes a team effort a lot more enjoyable. So that's how I think about it. It's always the implications that people don't enjoy doing. So if I were to go speak to my boss, I think the first thing that I will always ask is not about setting the agenda to say I'm here for a decision. I'll ask first, boss, do you have 10 minutes? I want to discuss something with you. So let's say it's an open-ended question. So let's say I do have 10. I have 5. That's okay, fine. So what that means at the back of my head, I know I have to make it fast. And if he gives me a response, he might not have the time to explain it, and that's fine. So if the response is yes, no, it's all right, boss. I understand. Let me send you a follow-up email. Just reply me after that. I get it. I'll go back and work on my other stuff. See you later. Right? So that's how I think about it. Yes or no, although it's a logical end conclusion of a question, it doesn't mean that it's the end of a process. So if we think about it in that way, it moves in parallel with the way we think about sales, isn't it? No, 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 yes. But then after that, it's still no, 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 and then yes, and then no, 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 yes. So I think about it in that way. I would rather control the process. Meaning to say, I'll think about the kind of questions, and if I flip it and I'm in a position to say yes or no, I would want to understand why people are suggesting or bringing up the question to begin with. The yes or no is just a very convenient way of aligning ourselves with the people around us. It's like making allies or making enemies, right? If you think about it that way. But it's not the key. The key is if whatever that we are doing or the new thing that we are proposing brings us ahead. So I always work with the orientation. So I don't think that's a millennial thing or East meets West thing or a corporate Singapore or corporate America thing. I don't think so. It's whether we can move. That's all.
All right.
And I'll take the consequences.
So my take is I feel it really depends, like Tim said, it depends on leadership. So I think there's a lot more bad leaders out there than good leaders. So I think it really depends, right? If you have a good leader, then you're going to be more comfortable at approaching them, and proposing them ideas. And even taking a no from a good leader is different than taking a no from a bad leader. So I think you really have to feel the leadership that you're underneath. And there are some leaders, it's always a no, right? And they might even steal your ideas and take it, So, and that's when you go, hey, maybe it's time for me to leave, right? And start my own business or go work for someone else. I think that's your leadership may not change in the corporate world. And that's your cue to maybe look for something else. And like with me, so earlier in my career, I was definitely more a yes man. I was and I think Jeremy, there is some Asian mindset too. I think we're more, we're a more submissive culture, the way we grew up, just if you watch the old Asian movies, right? If you watched all the ancient times and the marriages and it's arranged and, you're careful with what you say to the king, right? In the U.S., it's like, OC. It's like, F you, I don't want to do this. I'm 16. I'm going to go sleep around, do some drugs, do whatever I want, You don't see that type of movie in Asian culture. So then you grew up, we're yes mans to our parents. Think about it. Asian culture, man. I don't dare to say no to my dad because he's going to hit me with a chopstick upside my head,
Chopstick?
Yeah, chopstick.
That's it?
No, sometimes
Like, it's not a wooden rod or something like that.
both belt.
Oh, belt. Okay. Yeah, that sounds more.
But it's a little
belt.
different,
Yeah,
you know. In American culture, you know, you'll be calling the cops on your dad. You know.
Okay. Yeah, I heard about
You know.
that.
So the mind process is when you're in front of your superior. I think there is that natural fear of confrontation. So I noticed that even myself. I grew up in the States, but I had this mindset that, oh, I'm going to grow up, go to college, do really good in school because that's what my parents want. And when I get into my corporate job, you know, I go just work my way up, right? Just work really hard.
Yeah.
And you just don't say no to your boss because you won't be the yes man, so they'll notice how hard you're working. And that's just my take, right? And then slowly, you know, I started seeing, you know, the people that move up are not yes mans, you know, in corporate America. They're the people that actually, they're the ones that get to watch YouTube all day, you know, and make 6 figures and drive a BMW because they're okay with saying no, right? And you start just learning, you know, you have to start valuing yourself, right? And previously, I feel like earlier in my career, I just didn't value myself. You know, I felt like, oh, I just work underneath these people and I just supposed to do what they tell me to do, you know? And then slowly I started, you know, growing up in my approach and go, hey, my upbringing and my mindset isn't actually correct, you know? And you can challenge things. And actually, it makes you more happier when you get it out of your system, you know?
Yeah.
Or you just end up being a very unhappy employee. So
I know exactly what you mean. And I'm glad you bring up some big points, important points. I want to touch on that, Kevin. I think that the Asian culture, there's a few things that aligns to this not saying no thing, right? In the house, in the family, it's really more about this idea of filial piety, right? Respecting your parents. And since young, you know, you are taught by your parents to respect your elders, never talk back, which also means don't say no, right? So I think on the personal level and the house and all that, it's about filial piety, respecting your elders, this power distancing. You have high respect for power, and that sort of translates to the workplace. You know, you respect that, you know, because of the person's position in the company, you just surrender the respect, right? And you don't say no, right? Or at least earlier in your career. And not forgetting that in Singapore, all the guys have to go through military service, and that is 100% regimental, right? You respect the rank, you do not question it, and then you quiver in fear when you are recruit and some colonel or some major comes in and wow, that's a huge rank. It's like I don't know how many levels above me. You do it unquestionably, right? Ask you to drop 20 push-up, you just do it. So there are all these things affecting, especially for Singapore with the military aspect. And definitely in the earlier part of my career, I always tend to say yes, but I don't see it more of a yes-no thing. It's really more of yes to experiment or to put myself out of that comfort level and try something different, for example, right? I did gain some, I wouldn't say skill set, but at least some experience by saying yes, or at least not saying no to certain things. For example, you know, I've never been an MC before, and then they thought that I could do it, try it, and I just didn't say no. Okay, let's see how it goes. Because my thinking is, you know, one of two possibilities. If I mess up, nobody's going to kill me because that's not my profession, not my job scope, right? Right? If I mess up, that's fine. I tried, you know, I'm not pro, hire somebody else, you know, but you can't blame me for not trying. And secondly, if I'm okay at it, hey, I picked up something new. I'm known for a different set of skill set or a different value proposition to what I can do and what I can bring to the table, right? And I felt that, you know, early in a career, I think it's a good thing to not always say no, even though it's not within your job scope. Well, especially if the opportunities, for example, allows you to be more visible. For example, allows you to acquire new skills whereby you will not have done so if you stuck to your own zone, comfort zone. But for example, I give you a negative example. The first time I did simultaneous translation, which means it was a presentation to clients, and somebody was in China, somebody spoke in English. I had to translate that into Chinese. I did such a bad job out of it. So much so that a sales lady, she took over from my translation because I was translating word for word. I thought that was a good thing to do, but it just took too long, and I could not remember what I said because the guy who presented the English just went on. I couldn't remember half of the things, and not to mention the technical terms. So much so that I still remember that experience to today. I wanted to find a hole and put my head in it and forget I ever existed, right? I felt really bad. But I tried that, and further in my time in China, I tried that a few more times. And I realized from that experience, I learned how to actually translate. You don't translate word for word. You go for the main point and then you translate, right? And I'm not a pro at it. I mean, to do that kind of translation at a very good level, you get paid by the hour, by half hour, by minutes, and it's a lot of money. So if I'm not pro, I try it. I sort of acquired the skill set. And further on, in my time in China, when the CEO comes, do town hall, I'm up there doing that translation. That's visibility right there. And I always tell myself, if anyone is critical of my translations, that's fine. If they want to challenge me, that's fine. They can do it. They can take my place. It's fine. I'm not an expert. I'm not being paid extra for that. But I did acquire that skill set, or rather, I became like the go-to guy, for being MC or translations for big events and other things as well, right? Designing team building games, that kind of thing. So there are some benefits to saying yes rather than no, but it depends. Like for now, I'm at a point in my career, whereby, with the pandemic, right, you get issues like budgets get cut, you don't get headcounts replaced. What you're gonna do about it, right? So it becomes a point whereby I'm short of resources, and I need to learn to say no, because everyone is short of resources. They want you to help on this and that. So as far as I'm concerned, if I can help, I would be most willing to help. But I need to learn to say no, because I just only have that amount of hours, that kind of resources. So the way to say no to that will be, okay, boss, if you want me to do this, I can help. But which other thing you want me to put aside, to sacrifice for me to help on this? Maybe you could prioritize for me, because it's a resource issue, right? I don't have that kind of time. Yes, I can go on overdrive for 1 week, 3 months, but I'm going to burn out. And then what? I'm going to quit, right? So let's be open and upfront. Tell me which is important to you. I can take on this one extra, but this other thing is going to go, right? That's another way of saying no, or at least let them know that what the limitations are. So I do agree. It depends on which point in time are you in your career. And even so now, I have a team of a few people. Whatever I take on will translate to them additional workload, right? Because I take on extra. So these are the kind of the considerations you need to really balance out. And like Aldric said, right? Sometimes a yes, what are you trying to look for? Is it accountability? Are you trying to make that person say yes so that the fault doesn't lie with you? Accountability lies with that person? Or is it more of a discussion or a shared responsibility? I think that's also another dimension we need to, that's another dimension we need to consider, right? What does the yes mean or the no mean, right? So that's my take. Sorry, it took a while.
No, that's good.
Nice, man.
Good stuff.
And I think it's a good transition, right? So we talk about from an employee-employer perspective, and I bet there's a huge audience out there on LinkedIn as well that would love to hear saying no to your clients. So I know Tim is a consultant, and so is Aldric, and even Jeremey. You probably work with some customers in retail that you might not agree with, right? So what's your take on saying no?
Who wants to start?
Aldric.
Oh, okay, I'll go. First level response, it depends on the conversation. I do have clients who in the past, ancient past, recent past, even today, if the conversation goes along the way of can you do this for free? That's like I would say, oh, how would you want me to respond to you? Yes, let me think about it. Why are you asking that question? So I would try to turn that very serious question into a more comical note. Like, do you want me to say yes or no, or let me think about it, or you want me to ask you why you asked me that question, or what exactly do you have in mind, and things like that, just to lighten up the atmosphere slightly before I go in to say it's likely that my answer is going to be no, and let me explain why. Right? Because if there's commercial intent, right, of course my paid customers are going to come first. I mean, the paid work is going to come first. You could be a very long time customer for me, and I understand. So then I'll start asking, like, is there a reason why you're looking for free work? And let me explain. Then I'll give scenarios. Like, if you get something on the streets for free, you don't value it, isn't it? It ends up in your garage and in your storeroom, and you forget it forever. You just get a one-time kick out of something free. Then the question would be, do you value something free? Would you value the work I'm doing for you free? Right, so I'll change it. I'll try to change it. There are times where I understand that as part of servicing, we don't nickel and dime our clients to death, right? Like, let's say if it's consulting by the hour, we go by time. It's a rate, right? And if it overspills by 15 minutes, we don't always have to bill that spillover of 15 minutes. We don't have to. I understand that. It's okay.
Yeah.
But if it's so outright, can you do this for free? I'll be like, okay, let's see. What are you thinking? Like, literally, like, what are you thinking? So that's how I'll think about it. Give and take, right? Quick crow. If you were to ask me that, then you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared that what I'm giving you might not be what you have in mind, because what you are telling me is not what I have in mind. So value in exchange. That's how I think about it.
That's a great answer.
And I love to go too. So I think I'm very similar to Aldric, right? I am to the point today, what I do is I'm pretty selective with who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with. Because when, earlier when we were a startup, we were just trying to survive. So we kind of took what we needed, right? And we started learning, as the time stuck. You only have technically 8-9 hour days, right? Even if you're a hard worker, right? There's a lot of things behind the scenes people don't see. It's not just working for your client, right? And, I started out in the basement consulting, that this is pre-employee, and during that time I started learning, man, I'm just working myself to death. I work till 3 a.m. every day. I had a lot of clients, but then the value, right? I'm not valuing myself. I become like the Walmart, of digital marketing for the longest time. And
the only difference is that you don't walk out of Walmart not paying for something.
Yep. So I have bragging rights. I had like hundreds of clients, right? And then I slowly, I started developing. Hey, we have to value our time. And then you start having expensive building, and then employees, software, and different things. And now one of the biggest thing I do when I'm with a client is the upfront agreement. Before I train all my salespeople, business developers, hey, before we even start, I don't want to waste your time, and I know you don't want to waste mine. And I give them an upfront agreement. Today, this is what we go talk about, and this is what it, and especially in my world, right? Marketing, it's hard to give a number to marketing. It can be you can market something for $10,000. You can market some for $500, or you can do $1 million, right? Same thing. If someone's coaching someone on LinkedIn, you can do 500, you can do 1,000, you can do 30,000. It's on the eye of the beholder, right? So it's very hard to put a price tag on marketing, but you have to be upfront the value you bring to the table, and you have to value yourself. If you're good at what you do, then there's value in that. And I am similar to Aldric. I love giving them scenarios, right? So I find out, hey, what my clients do. So example, if they own like gyms, for example, then I'm going to give them an example. Hey, would you let people to have membership and go work out for free? You know, or hey, would you why are you charging $300 per month on membership? Oh, because we have high quality equipment, we have this and that. Well, it's the same thing with my service. So why do you expect me to do this? And people have to understand, if you want to pay a Honda Civic price, you can't expect a Mercedes with leather seats and Bose speakers. And I think a lot of people don't get that, you know, and they talk about they get it, okay? But when the seats turn and all of a sudden you're the client, everyone wants cheap, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned even myself, I started being guilty and go, you know, I need to respect whoever is on the other end selling. Like today, I respect people's time. Man, this guy's really good at what he does. And I'll tell him, hey, I really can't afford you, but you're really good and I don't want to waste your time. You know? And I think you have to be able to be in the consumer seat and also the salesperson seat. And we have to understand, if you want something quality and good, then you got to value them and you got to be ready to pay the price. And don't expect results if you're getting a low quality. And it goes into software solutions, anything, right, in life. You know, you're not going to get a penthouse, you know, paying low value at a hotel. You know, you could get something cheap. That's just the fact. So that's my take. I think an upfront agreement is so important.
Yeah.
I love the part on upfront agreement, but I'll come back after the two boys have answered.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, from a consulting perspective, and you know, it's funny, like this goes not only in consulting, but even in the car dealership. When I work for car dealerships, you know, sometimes you do have to say no to somebody, because the reality is you have to look at what the next step is, right? So money's money, and we all want to get the money, but the reality is, if you get the money and following that is immediately going to become a really negative review about your company, even though you made the sale, sometimes it's just not worth it, you know? And you kind of have to be able to see the future a little bit. In my world now with consulting, if I meet with somebody and I have an initial consultation with them, now the first consultation is free because we haven't met each other, right? I don't know what you need, so let's talk about it. But once that part is over, now it's, okay, what can I do for you to help you expand? Now, if I feel I can help you expand, but you're going to tell me, like, hey, basically, I'm going to tell you how it's done, and you're just going to do it, I'm like, well, you don't need me for that, right? Anybody can do that. So for that, like, don't bring me on board, because we're just going to end up clashing, and you're not going to be happy with the end result. So look, we do it your way, we're cool. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm very selective, like Kevin said, with my clients. I'm not going to take just anybody, despite they're throwing a check at me, because I don't want to ruin the reputation of my business. Because at the end of the day, if they want to do it their way and it's counterproductive, I don't want to take the check and then say, well, it was your fault that it's the same way. You wanted to call the shots. So I'll just say, hey, listen, you know, maybe this isn't for us right now. We can reconvene in a later date, things like that. But, you know, I don't want to just take the check to take the check, because I know what the end result is. So I think it's important to know when to say no to a client, because, you know, it may not benefit you in the future. Yes, you might get a short-term check, but you might damage your reputation in the process. Hey, I signed that guy on, I don't feel I got results. Well, okay, then yeah, I don't want to be that person. I also don't want to take your money and have to refund you because you feel like you didn't get results. So from that standpoint, I think it's important to know, you know, what the next step is, who you're dealing with as a client, and if you're not going to make a benefit to them, then it's okay to walk away from that and find a different one in a consulting role. That's my opinion on the word no, and, you know, telling a client no. Listen, I don't think anybody likes turning down money, me included, but I also have to look at how much time I'm going to be spending. And what Kevin said is spot on with the upfront agreement. So my pitch to everyone is, look, as a consultant, you're on the clock, right? As much time as you need me, as I'll be here, but that's how much it's going to cost you. You know, if you're only willing to pay this much, I can't spend my entire day at your place, because the reality is I could just go work for somebody and make more money. Then I don't need to work for myself. So people understand that, as you said, Kevin. You give them that, hey, this is what it is. I can be here as much as you need me, as long as you're paying for that service. Fine. And people get it, and they'll say, well, I can't afford this. I can afford this. Okay, cool. Then let's structure it around how much you have, and we can work it out that way.
Okay, my answer is going to be quite similar, right? But I think I want to touch on choosing your customers. Yes, I know the saying, right? You don't get to choose your customers, but that depends. Depends on which point in time of your career, of your business, right? If you're just a startup, you don't get to choose your customer, because every customer is going to be your lifeblood, right? To pump in money, you need any customer at all to build up a reputation, to have some form of credibility to show to your next customer. So if you're early in the game, you don't get to choose a customer, right? That's clear and simple. But if you are successful later part, you will get the opportunity to choose customers. And how would you choose the customers is this concept, like you guys mentioned, right? In terms of time. But I think in the corporate world, it's really, time is one aspect, but it's really more margins, right? You need to walk away from customers that are going to give you really low margins. And margins could be the amount of time you need to service the client. For example, when I was in my advertising days, right, we need to clock in the amount of hours we do for each customer, be it a bank, be it a FMCG. So every account executive or the graphic guy or all these people will clock in the time they spend on a specific account. Okay, and why is that important? Because in advertising, the prices are upfront, right? You make an X amount of 17% or whatever based on whatever artwork you need to do, but the margin is actually based on the amount of time you spend with the client. So if you are doing that conscientiously and you have this whole software to track, you do know which customers are the ones that give you the highest return on investment in terms of your time spent with them, right? And at that kind of point in time, once you know, you really get to choose customers. Now, if there are customers who ask you for free, right, on the first meeting or whatever, you know that's going to be a problem. Why? Because it's usually these customers who got it for free, and if you take them on, they are the ones that are going to suck all the time out of you. These are not quality customers, because you're going to make very low margins, or you're going to spend a lot of time on them, right? So it's just the nature of the customers. You need to be able to identify which customers are high value, they are willing to pay, they know your value, they won't negotiate with you, and they will always be the smoothest one that just keep paying, right? But it's always the smaller ones that takes a lot of time, and usually the ones you sort of get for free or give them low price, they will be the ones that bug you for help, for service calls, for every nitty-gritty thing. They will call you and ask for discounts. So if you're in a position to choose between these two types of customers, come on, we know which one to choose, right? But if you're early in the game, you don't have a choice. You just have to go with someone until the point that you get to choose. And that's my point. 80-20 rule, right? We say in marketing, and usually it's the 20% that's going to take 80% of your time, because these are the ones that the cheapskate guys, right? But the rest of those big guys that always pay, no problem, no issues. They are going to be your customers. You're going to make margins, good margins off them. Keep those ones because they know your value. So that initial contact with the customer, whether they negotiate on price or not, is actually quite telling. And if you're positioned to pick your customers, you know which ones to choose.
I find that very interesting, especially the way you apply the 80-20 rule in terms of the customers, the spectrum of customers that we get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's true that it's 80-20 rule, but the way I do think about that in a separate note is I think what's true and well tested in terms of time is that 20% of the customers will account for 80% of the revenue in total. That's true. Then then of course the thing that we typically have to think about, especially when we are running our own show or when we are running our own team in a corporate setting, it would be is it always the money is the issue or the people that we're dealing with is the issue? I think it's the people. You can have very high paid client. You can. But if they are always asking for help, if they are always giving you the speed dial, or if they are always sending you emails and things like that, then it's a choice that you have to make, right? You can play with your margins, but you know that they need a lot of assistance from you way beyond what you are expecting. And then now, all of a sudden, you have to make a very difficult decision, because if that's a diamond client, so to speak, but they always need this kind of assistance, and they always need you to support their team, and they always need you to do this and that. We all have a decision to make. That's what I think. And I just want to circle back to the very initial question of yes and no, and how we grew up. I saw one of the tag that says Hispanic culture, which was also pointed to Tim, but I'm just going to say this. When we look at the corporate hierarchy, we typically think about it as a pyramid, isn't it? The one standing on top makes all the decision.
Yep.
That's actually a very strong social element in terms of looking at the corporate hierarchy. But flip it. If you flip it, you realize that the person, the entrepreneur or the founder or the CEO, is experiencing the ultimate funnel for the crappiest issues in that organization the entire day. Ultimate funnel for shittiest issues the entire day. Because if it can be resolved, it would have been, right? Cannot, okay, I speak to my superior. Cannot, I speak to my superior. Cannot, I speak to my superior. And you're the last leg. You can't just say, oh man, I don't know how to do this. Can I defer it to tomorrow? Can we have a no, you can't. It's your company, isn't it? You're running the show. So when it comes to making a decision, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, it's, if you think about it, it's our business. So every decision that we make, the consequences, no one likes to really think and talk about the consequences and things like that. But are we moving? If we are moving, I think that's good. That's how I think about it. It's, yeah. I'll just flip the corporate hierarchy.
Yeah, that's smart.
That's good. Yep. And a lot of people don't think about it when you're an entrepreneur or you own a business. It's not as glamorous as society puts it. You're putting out fires. You know, that's what you do. You know, management oftentimes is just putting out fires. So that's a great point, Aldric. So I want to move to our next one, right? How can you get better at saying no?
Practice it. You gotta that seriously. I mean, no, in all seriousness, that's how I got better at it, you know? I think it starts with a mental commitment to boundaries, because the reality is, if you don't have boundaries, then who's gonna feel shitty is you as a person, not the people who are taking advantage of the fact that you're not saying no. You're the one that's gonna feel shitty. So it starts with establishing boundaries for yourself, and then once you've established those boundaries, then you just have to put it in practice, and it can be very uncomfortable. You know, I mean, I was a person also growing up who hated saying no to people, and I put myself in a lot of bad positions because I was always trying to say yes, 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 I'll do that, yes, no problem, yes, okay, and then you end up saying it so much, you don't have any time for yourself. You feel like you're always working for other people. You're not being productive, and you know, there's a lot of negative things that come out of not saying no and not having boundaries. So, you know, I think it becomes a practice thing where you say no to somebody and you get comfortable with it. You keep saying it over and over again. And then eventually it just becomes habit where you're like, okay, I value my time. Therefore, I'm not going to say yes to this, and that, because realistically, I won't have the time to do all of those things. And I'm not going to benefit myself, and I'm not going to benefit anybody else along the way if I don't say no. So, you know, and it's also good to have a reason, which we talked about. It's to say, hey, I can't do that because I have other obligations, or whatever the case is. It doesn't have to be a hard no. It's a no because I just can't at this moment. And I would love to. It's just not something I have the time for right now. So again, I think practice saying no and being comfortable with that boundary and knowing what your limitations are. I think that's your starting point.
And I think it's important to be comfortable with someone saying no to you. I think as humans, we need to develop thicker skin. You got to be able to be kicked in the face. And especially when you're in the corporate world or as an entrepreneur or salesperson, and you have to be okay with a no, and I think we're talking about saying no, but we also have to be able to handle when someone dishes us a no, because there's so many times we aren't going to get our way, and it's okay, and I mean, just look at the world today, right? The pandemic and everything. I think we have to accept the fact there are things that we can't control, and it's okay. And we have to develop thicker skin. And that way you can repeat that process of taking the no's, And I'm a perfect example. Earlier in my life, I was not good with confrontation. And it's something I had to really work towards. And slowly, it just became habit. Just like Aldric said, it just became a habit and Tim. And I think that's necessary because you have to develop that thicker skin in order to be successful. Yep.
I want to answer the question, right? How to get better with saying no by throwing two concepts, right? See if it sticks, huh? Bear with me. So I think we tend to associate no with wrong and yes with right. Subconsciously, I feel, right? So that has to go. That's the first thing. The second thing is you sometimes need to think of saying no as being responsible. Why? Because if time is a concept that we don't have enough of, and saying yes or saying no has an opportunity cost to that time, then you need to realize that it's a responsibility. It's also a responsibility if saying no. Why? Because if you're saying no to a job that you cannot perform as well, or you're not comfortable with, or you're not good at, it's actually a responsible thing to say no. Okay? Like just last night, somebody asked me if I could help with, I would call it sort of like a manual data thing, right? I can do it, no problem. It's on Excel. And you need to do pivot tables and all that. Over time, I definitely can do it. I could say yes, but I say no because why? I don't know how to use, to be honest, I don't know how a pivot table works in Excel. That's not my area of expertise, right? I could say yes and spend the next 5 hours, but that's at the expense of my sleep time or my time with my family or my other jobs that needs my attention. So I said no. And the way I said no was like, well, look at it this way. I'm not good at Excel. This is not what I'm good at. It would be the same if I ask you, a finance person, to do design work on Photoshop. Now you understand what I'm facing. So I think saying no could be a responsible thing to do, and it is not wrong to say no. So that's how I think I would practice, getting more comfortable with saying no, thinking of it as a responsibility or opportunity cost of time, and telling myself that saying no is not wrong. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I agree. Aldric?
I think for most of us, we don't really grow up being very comfortable accepting no's or saying no's, right? So just a little bit on me. When I was growing up and naturally when an adult says no to me, now thinking back, right? It is about, and then what? I will always think about it. It's no, okay, and then what? Because I want that thing. You're telling me no, right? Okay, can I go around it? Can I find my own way? Can I? If I can't get you to do something that I want, like as a kid, it's simple, right? I want this, but as you start growing up, it's not going to work anymore. So you got to find your own way. That's how I think about it when it comes to no. And I think we are also not very comfortable saying no growing up for some reason. But the way I think about it is this. I tend to say yes when I'm growing up, so I can get the adults off my back. And what that means is, if I can do that, and then I can give them what they want by being very efficient at it, well, that means I leave more and more and more time for myself to do what I want. So that's how I cope with it growing up. I'm like, okay, just to be clear, you want this, right? So I'm gonna give you this, and this. Okay? Yeah. So to me, it's just a matter of a boy growing up. I just want people to get off my shoulders. Like, okay. And after that, I'm off on my own. I don't want to talk too much about that anymore, right? So it's like, nah, take it, leave me alone. Bye. I'm going off. So that's how I think about it. And even till today, whether it's no or saying no or things like that, no doesn't mean that it's the end of the line. It just means that this path that you're pursuing is not viable. But that doesn't mean that you can't get to your destination. You have to find your own way. That's how I think about it. As for the point about having a skin as thick as a rhino's, because I do, in some sense, I do have some competitive element in the sports that I choose. I always think about it in this way. At the start line of a national championships, it doesn't matter if the person standing beside me is Kermit the Frog, Captain America, or the top national athlete. My job there is to ensure I get to the finish line as fast as possible. It doesn't matter. Even if it's Santa Claus beside me, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Kermit the Frog, Captain America, Thor, Santa Claus standing beside me, I don't care. My job is to get to the start line as fast as possible. So I don't usually think about how thick my skin is going to be and things like that. Oh yes, of course, I have a very thick skin. I want to win. I have a very thick skin, but at the end of the day, it's coming back to myself, and this is my goal. I want to get it, so I don't care. So I'm not going to look. That's how I think.
So,
guys, two things, right? I think we got a very interesting question from Felix.
Yep.
You guys reading it? So that's one thing. And the second thing, I'm gonna do it by demonstration and example, right? I have to say no to continue because I have a call to go. So I think this is the best example of me, how to get comfortable by saying no. I mean, really, I love you guys. You guys know that. And this has been really good, interesting topic. But I have to say no. I have to go to a work call. So I'm going to leave you guys here, and also demonstrating that you can say no. This is an opportunity cost. I would really rather be here, but, I have to get to that call. So take care, guys. Please answer Felix, because I think it's an interesting question. My answer to that will really be, it's a responsible thing to do. If you feel that it's not irresponsible to yourself, to the company, if you think it's not a good match, don't take the job. Just say no and say some reason, right? So that's me. I'm going to sign off now. Take care, guys. I'll join you guys next week, okay? And to all you guys out there,
later,
thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
All right.
So Felix said, "Good morning, sir. Sometimes I receive private messages from LinkedIn connections offering jobs, but I am not interested in it. How should I reject them by saying no politely?"
So I think this is a great question, really, actually. I think, Felix, what you probably owe it to them to do is ask some questions around what you want. And if it doesn't align with what you want, you can then politely say, based on our discussion, that I feel that maybe this isn't the best fit for me at this time. And I think that's a good way of being polite about it. But at the same time, you're letting them know, like, hey, I did my homework. I'm not just blindly turning you down. Based on what you're offering and based on what I need, I don't feel that this is going to be a fit for me at this moment. And I think that's a polite way of saying no. And at the same time, you're also doing your due diligence and you're letting them know that you did at least take their offer seriously. So if it's me, that's how I would answer the question.
All right. I think for me, it would be if saying a yes or no is going to put you in a very difficult position, then there's always a choice of not going there, and instead just ask or tell that these are the things that you are looking for in this stage of a career. Do we have a match? So skirt that question, but also address it. We don't have to address it in a yes or no, because it could be a match of needs and wants, right? Because when people look at your profile, they think that you're going to do this, but then you're just communicating like a conversation, like having a logical conversation to say that I'm looking at all these points now at this stage of the career. Do we have a match? That's how I would address it.
And I like Amy, what she said, thank them for the offer and say, I appreciate offer, but this isn't the right fit. So I think that's important, especially in LinkedIn. A lot of times it's very casual. So I think it's great to just, I think you owe them a polite response, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's important. So, yeah. So my next question, right? This will be the last question for tonight.
Fire away.
Who do you choose to say yes to connecting and no on LinkedIn?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So,
you want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. Okay, so my LinkedIn usage as far as connection goes, when I look at you as a connection, I want to see that we're both going to bring each other value. Plain and simple. So if you're going to request me as a connection, I do want to see that you're going to bring me value, right? If I see that your last 3 messages are open to connect, open to connect, open to connect, you're probably not going to bring me value, right? I don't see you posting anything other than open to connect. So how does that bring me value? Because I know when on my LinkedIn journey, I'm attempting to bring you value. You know, the posts, I can speak for all 3 of us because I know we all try to post at least daily. Aldric, I know, is sometimes twice daily. So, you know, we're providing value. So, you know, you don't have to be posting to provide value, but are you commenting on other people's on other people's posts? You know, are you liking what they're saying? Are you active on LinkedIn? Are you an active community member? If you're an active community member, sure, I want you as a connection. If you're inactive, if there's no activity and you're just requesting me and I don't know you at all, I don't see a reason that you're going to be bringing me value. And especially if you do that, you're not active and you don't send me some kind of personalized message. I don't usually read them that much, but at least if you don't have any activity, but you say, hey, this is my purpose, then it makes a little bit more sense. But the reality is, like I said, if you're going to send me a connection request, then I'd like to see you're going to bring me value, because I know I'm attempting to bring you value in some way when I'm on LinkedIn. That's how I do it.
Well, but most people, they will ask, right? And not think too much about what they will give, which is pretty much common as a human nature thing, right?
Yeah.
By default, I don't have anything against accepting invitations. But, you know, given that little space that's there, and if I can read that profile, I will have some preconceived notions. If that is proven true after accepting that invitation, then I'll see what I'm going to do with that. Of course, I have nothing against connecting with Forex traders. On and off, I do some Forex trading, but if you connect with me and you ask me for some investment and things like that, the first thing I'm going to ask you, what strategies do you deploy? And if you're saying something which is BS, you're not going to hear anything else from me anymore. Simply because I'm a practitioner. If I do trading, I'll trade and I'll understand. You have to tell me if you're doing carry trade, interest rate parity differentials, or things like that. Otherwise, I'm not listening. Because I know that you're just out there trying to get an account while someone else is doing the job, and I don't trust this model at all when it comes to money. That's one thing. One scenario. The other one would be if it's always about help me, I would really think a lot, because I am a firm believer of help yourself. No, seriously, help yourself. Because like what Tim mentioned, right? Value in exchange. There's always a reason. There's always a reason why some people can actually help you better in some things, but you can also help people in some other areas that they are lacking, right? So that's how I think. It's not necessarily transactional, but we all want to progress, isn't it? And we all have our blind spots. But if you're always only focusing on yourself, then I think that conversation is going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult.
That's good. So I think with my take, I've been getting a lot of connection. It's funny, when you get to a certain followers, you'll start snowballing these connection requests, right?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, there's so many nowadays. There's bots, there's hacks, there's all this stuff, right? In the world of digital marketing, and I'm okay with it. But the worst is when they don't ask about me at all, or they're selling me a service that I provide as well without getting to know me. And it's very obvious it's automated, right? And that's when it's kind of a turnoff. And I'm the same as Tim. I always go back to look at their content and what kind of value are you bringing, right? And you have to remember there's a limit on how many connections you can have on LinkedIn. And don't think getting to 30K is really that hard, okay? Right now on the LinkedIn platform, it's actually not very hard to do, right? But then you have to think about it. Are you actively going to be able to connect with the 30,000, right? So there's a 30,000 limit, and you'll see people that have 50K, 60K. Those were grandfathered, right? But you got to remember, once you hit that 30K, it's a lot harder to unfollow people. That's going to take up a lot more time because there are bots to connect, but there's no bots right now on LinkedIn to unconnect. There's unfollow, right? So if you understand how these social media platforms work and the algorithm, the people you connect with is where your content will start displaying. So the more you're active, like I talk to Aldric and Tim a lot, they're going to see my content, right? And same with my bottoms up group. These are people I care about. I invest my time and they bring value to me. So they see my content. But if you start just going off firing away, connecting with people, you're not really speaking to your target audience that you really want to connect with. So it's the same idea as making friends, right? You don't go out and talk to every single acquaintance out there and expect a business opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to build relationship. You have to build trust. And you're going to get a conversion. It takes time. You can't just go sell cars to random people, right, Tim? They have to be, are they in the proximity of the dealership? Are they looking for that specific type of vehicle? So know who you're targeting. If you're out here doing business on LinkedIn, then you got to be real specific who you want to read your comments and who you want to see your content. And those are the people you want to connect with, right? And say no to the rest. Or what happened is your content's not even being fed to their feed. So they're not even reading your stuff. And then all of a sudden you have a bunch of people in India or Pakistan or wherever, right? That your content's just killing it, displaying over there, but they'll never convert to business, right? So it really depends. If you're there to just for the metrics, you want to build a huge following and do it quickly, connect away, right? So it depends on your goals, but I highly recommend before you know it, you're up in 10K, 20K, and 30K is not that big of a number. And you got to be careful. Like, who do you want to connect with? Who do you want to feed into your pool of relationship, So I think that's something we have to think about when we're connecting with people. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there's no question that you can, I mean, look, anybody can build a following just off the Let's Connect posts, right? But what are you going to do with that following? And it's going to be very random people, to your point, Kevin, right? You don't know who you're connecting with because you're just blindly accepting connection requests. Now, what I really appreciate about LinkedIn, and I did this a while ago, and I'm glad I did, is the follow button. That's, I think, one of the most important things you can do. Because, look, for me, I don't accept every connection request because I give you the ability to follow me. Like, you can follow me very easy. Just click the button, right?
Yeah.
So you can follow me super easy. We don't need to necessarily connect for you to engage with my content. But at the same time, if you're going to take the extra step and say, hey, I'd like to connect, then I'm expecting that we're going to help each other. There's going to be some value to bring. And as you said, Kevin, like, if you're going to do, let's say, online marketing via LinkedIn, email, and connection marketing, well, burning connections on non-business customers is a bad value exchange. So, it's not a good idea to just go after tons and tons of connections. If, at 29K, all of a sudden you only have 1,000 connections to make to try to build a business. Like you said, now you have to unwind all these connections you made to try to foster business through LinkedIn. It's a bad strategy. So, I think it's important for everybody to recognize all the implications of connections.
And I think it's so important too. What we just said, it's all about community, right?
Yeah.
Looked at LinkedIn as a community, and you have to nurture your community, your tribe, and not everyone's going to be a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And you have to start saying no. And I think I much rather have, my BUP group. These are the guys I actually talk to. They bring value. They'll slap me in the face if I'm doing something stupid. I'd rather have that, like 30 or 40 of that than 30,000 followers, that truly don't care about me. And it's hard to engage with everyone. The truth is, there's no way. You can use all the bots you want. You can't engage with 30,000 people and create quality relationship.
No. I mean, I think we're all above 10K now. I think I can say this for sure. It's very hard to keep up with my inbox. It's damn near impossible. Like, and I actively try. Like, I'll take a night and take 2 hours to try to get caught up. But after a week, I'm instantly back to catching up with everyone. So, the more you grow a following, it's harder to keep up with that inbox.
And I think too, people forget the beauty of community too. And it's like back in the old days, right? You live in this village and everyone help each other. I've generated more business opportunities just from my small community because people start referring me businesses that are a good fit, rather than just me randomly cold targeting and trying to reach out to random people. There's strength in a community, and it's always been that way, right? Nothing has changed. We're just now doing business online. Yep.
It's very interesting that you brought up the limitation of 30,000 connections.
Yep.
And I'll probably just expand a little bit on that because I spent some time thinking about the so-called business model of social media. And I try to bootstrap it into the functions that we can see. So there's social and there's media. If we are here, like I'll speak for myself. I'm here for my community, and at the same time, I'm trying to build my business on the back of a social media strategy, which has worked for me, right? And when I look at the value chain of one platform such as LinkedIn, I would value the post feed, the content, and the direct message. The post feed, the content, and the direct message. If I produce content that's relevant to my business and what I want to do, and it gets into your post feed, I'm marketing, right? And at the same time, I understand that for everyone, you don't get to choose. There's only one post feed. So if I do my copy well, I have a chance. I understand that. Then the most valuable thing is on the DM, because when people message you and things like that in exchange, when there's a conversation exchange, we can figure out if they are there for the social or they are there for the commercial intent. I think about it that way. But if you are highly into the game of social, you are going to focus on notifications because it gives you the adrenaline high, right? Oh, someone liked it. Oh, someone commented. Oh, someone did my post. That's one. And the other one is you are going to be very high when you see the count, the notifications on the network. Oh my gosh, so many people connected with me. Oh my gosh, so many people connected with me. But the question would be, so it depends on why we are there, right? So maybe at the very beginning we are trying to figure it out. We don't know how to use this and things like that. Yeah, sure, go for the connections. I'm fine with that. But at a certain point, I won't say 1,000 or 2 or 10,000. Everyone is different. But at a certain point, we need to break through to realize that, hey, there's a purpose for this platform, and you can start seeing it. You start seeing it, and then we will react accordingly, isn't it? That's what I think. So just to circle back to your point on the limitations of connections, I'm with you, Kevin. But at the same time, if we take some time to really understand the value chain of this social platform, in fact, for all, you can see which are the areas that are really valuable. You can see it. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. That's why I produce content. That's why I try to understand all your post feeds and like how can I get to your post feed and you can read my content and then speak to me. So content, post feed, and DMs to me are very important. Do I always look at the number that's tagged to the notifications? Well, when I have some time, but that's not what I do.
And I think it's important to think of it this way too. So this is something I look at all the time, right? I always think about, like right now, I'm thinking about what happens when LinkedIn is done, right? That's something you have to realize because I went through MySpace. From MySpace went to Facebook. From Facebook went to Instagram. So I am a practitioner because that's what feeds me and my family. Yeah. That's how I pay my bills. So I'm always watching. There's a life cycle to these platforms. Yeah. And if you're not careful to saying no to how much time you waste on things that's not necessary, it can actually affect what's paying your bills, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's addictive. At the end of the day, it's very addictive. It's designed for you to be addicted. You got to remember, these platforms make money by you being active. They don't make money when you are just on LinkedIn, but you aren't active. So the goal for these platforms is for you to have activity and engagement. But I'm always thinking, am I building a following that if tomorrow LinkedIn isn't around, can I take these relationships with me? And if you can't, you're not doing social media well. Mm-hmm. And I tell all my clients that. Because if tomorrow there was no more LinkedIn and bottoms up perspective, I can't do live on LinkedIn, I know I can email Aldric, Timothy, and Jeremy. Yeah. And we can figure out something else. Yeah. Because we have a relationship. And same with the whole bottoms up perspective community. I know I'll still talk to Amy. I'll still talk to Frank and the people that are on these things. I know Michael can too. We had coffee, So that's important to think about, Stop focusing on vanity only because you can't take vanity with you. Those people are gone tomorrow, right? So, but if you want a sustainable business model, you got to take those people with you. You got to have that network. And it's no difference than old school business model, right? The salesman that build relationship and have that Rolodex, no matter what company he goes to, he will win every single time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my take. Yep.
No, totally with you. And I'm just going to add one more point. I think it's also very important to have that confidence that you can start all over again. I mean, I've mentioned that several times. And there's another layer, which is if the majority of your community is on LinkedIn with you and then on another platform that you're not in, it's fine. Because every platform has its purpose. I know that Timothy is on TikTok. I know that Kevin's on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I think it's fine. But I'm on Quora. Are you?
I'm not a practitioner on TikTok, so.
Yeah. So the point is, the point is that we can always try to do something or establish a presence based on what we want. We should execute based on what we want and not based on what is the shiniest object out there, right? I want people to understand that I have something to offer and I can answer very directly at some of the queries. I go on Quora. I don't have to go TikTok. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm fine. Like, so what if TikTok is the highest growth and things like that? But if it doesn't suit my purpose, then the line beneath it will be it doesn't suit my purpose. So it's fine. I don't know how to get this out in as simple as possible, but it's really about having the confidence in ourselves and what we want to do, and acknowledging that what Timothy wants to do, Jeremy wants to do, Kevin wants to do, and what I want to do, there will be overlaps, but there's going to be differences.
Yep. Yeah. And not every platform is for everyone. So you have to say no to some social media platforms because it might not be the wisest way to spend your time. So,
I agree with that. Listen, I'm on like every platform, but this is where I spend my time. You know what I mean? Like the other stuff, I'll put up a quick post, and if it doesn't get interaction, I really don't care. This is where I spend my time.
But what's amazing about TikTok, I think it is an awesome video editor, and it's free. And so if you want captioning and doing transitions on your business videos, you can export it and upload it to LinkedIn. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, you know? So I definitely see using that. I haven't figured out how to do business. That definitely my target audience is not on TikTok. I don't want to be a Gen Z digital marketing person. That's not my game. So, so I haven't played in that space yet. But I do agree with Tim Aldric. It just depends. You know, you got to know your why and why you're doing what you're doing. So,
yeah, no, this was a great discussion, guys. I enjoyed this.
Yep. So for next week, okay, we're going to do follow-up. So
fantastic topic.
Yep. So we talk about sales, we talk about connecting, we talk about building relationships. But hey, how do you do follow-up, right? You know, the early bird gets the worm. So that's next week's topic.
The early worm gets eaten. Huge, okay?
That's awesome.
In that case, it's best to show up late to the party.
That's awesome. So join us next week, same time, and we look forward to seeing you. And we appreciate everyone that's on tonight's show. And we want to say thank you. Hey, and we have a Bottoms Up Perspective group, and make sure you join our YouTube if you want to continue to see the rest of the episodes. Click and subscribe. Help us out here. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night and have a good morning.
All right. Great
day.
Thanks for
see you guys.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.